Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to start with some common denominator review. We're going to add some fractions using it. The biggest thing I saw in class today was that we struggled with finding common denominators. So what we're going to do is we're going to review the two ways to find common denominators, do a little bit of practice, and talk about that so we are squared away for tomorrow. So the two ways we find common denominators are using LCM, our least common multiple, or by multiplying denominators. And as always, if you see it on the screen here, you need to write it down unless you hear otherwise. So, we are going to take our first problem of 1/6 plus 1/8. Alright. So the first way that we can find these is my least common multiple. So I'm going to list all the multiples of 6 and 8. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 8, 16, 24, 32. Well, I already found it. It's 24. So my first job using LCM, my least common multiple, which is 24, I need to change both of these fractions into equivalent fractions using that denominator. So if I know my denominator is 24 for both of them, then I know to go from 6 to 24, I have to multiply by 4. So I'm going to multiply my numerator by 4, which is the same thing, and I need to make sure that these fractions right here are equivalent. So 1 times 4 is 4. And to go from 8 to 24, I multiplied by 3, so I have to multiply 1 by that same number, 3, and I get 3. So now I can add my numerator straight across, and I get 7/24. But what if I multiply my denominators? What do I get? Well, I know that 6 times 8 is 48. So if I multiply this 6 right there by 8, I have to multiply its numerator by 8. So 1 times 8 is 8. And if I know if I multiply this denominator by 6 to get 48, I have to do that with its numerator. So 1 times 6 is 6. And as I add those straight across, I get 14/48. And now I know I can reduce that because they're both even numbers. So I divide each by 2/2, and I get 7/24. So as you can see here, I end up with the same answer to this problem using different denominators because these fractions right here in this box are all equivalent. This fraction of 4/24 is just multiplied by 4/4, and this fraction over here was from the originals multiplied by 8. All of these fractions here are equivalent. Okay? So what we're deciding here is that sometimes it doesn't matter what the denominator is, it's just a matter of that you get a common denominator, make sure that you get the correct equivalent fractions, and then reduce. So whatever you need to do, know that getting 7/24 as a final answer is your best bet. Alright. Also, just take note, if you use least common multiple, your amount of reducing will be cut down a lot. So if I say 3/4 plus 1/6, okay, I know I can list my multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and my multiples of 6 are 6. Sorry about that. 12, 18, whoops, found it already. So my multiples, my least common multiple is 12. So this fraction's equivalent over 12. So I went from 4 to 12 by multiplying by 3. So I have to multiply 3 by 3 and get 9. Plus this fraction over 12. How do I go from 6 to 12? I multiplied by 2. So I multiply 1 by 2 and I get 2. Well, I can add those straight across. 9 plus 2 is 11. I keep my denominator the same, and I get 12. Well, let's make sure we mark that LCM. Well, here I'm going to multiply my denominators. What is 4 multiplied by 6? 24. So I know I need to find two equivalent fractions with denominators of 24. Equivalent fractions to my original. So I went from 4 to 24 by multiplying by 6. So 3 multiplied by 6 is going to be 18. And I went from 6 to 24 by multiplying by 4. So I get 1 multiplied by 4 is 4. I add those together, and I get 22 24ths. I notice that both numbers are even, so I can reduce by dividing 2 over 2. And I get 22 divided by 2 is 11. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay? Again, I know I'm going at my pace. What I want you to do is write it down, listen, rewind as necessary, and keep up as best you can. The whole point of me doing this on here is so that you can pause, write, rewind, and rehear things as many times as you need to. All right? So let's do one more of these, and let's get rid of that text. So anyway, so let's break one down here. So let's use let's use 2 6 plus 3 eighths. Alright, so I know that if I list my factors, we've already done it again, but let's get into practice. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 8, 16, 24, 32. So I find out, again, that I remember 24 is my common multiple, my least common multiple. Well, I'm going to actually break down and show you how we get those equivalent fractions. So, to go from 6, right, so I have 2 sixths, so 2 over 6, and I'm going to multiply by 4, and multiply whatever I do to the bottom, I got to do the top, and I'm multiplying by 4 to get to 24, so 2 times 4 is 8, 6 times 4 is 24, plus, and I'm going to do my work down here, 3 over 8, but I'm going to extend my line there. To go from 8 to 24, I need to multiply by 3. So I have to multiply the top by 3, and I get 9 24ths. So 8 24ths plus 9 24ths gives me 17 24ths. Okay? And again, you should see that 2 sixths is equivalent to 8 24ths, and 3 eighths is equivalent to 9 24ths. Now, we're not going to add them, but I want you to practice. What are the equivalent fractions of the box in green over 48? How do I go from 6 to 48? I'm going to multiply by 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. How do I go from 8 to 48? I would multiply by 6, so 3 times 6 is 18. I guarantee you that if you add these fractions and reduce, that this answer is what you get. Try that on your own. Pause the video and try that. Okay? So, as we move on, you got to understand that sometimes the denominator of one fraction is the multiple of the other denominator, making it the common denominator. Don't need to write that. I just wanted to put in print what I was saying. And what I mean by that is if I say 1/3 plus 3/9, we know that 9, right here, is a multiple of 3. So I really only need to change one fraction because this one is already written as a fraction with a common denominator. So how would I go from 1/3 to 9ths? Well, I would multiply 3 by 3, and I'd multiply 1 by 3. So I would change this fraction to 3/9 plus 3/9, right there, 6/9 reduced to 2/3. Now, those numbers turned out to be the exact same, so that might be a bit confusing. So let's try another one. Let's do 3/8 plus 2/4. Right? As we see, eighths is a multiple of 4. So if I list my multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12. My multiples of 8 are 8, 16, 24. So I see right away that 8 and 8 are my common multiples. Well, this I don't need to change. How do I go from 8 to 8? I multiply by 1. So I really don't need to change anything. So this one, as we're going to write them down below, keeps the same at 3/8. Well, so how do I go from 4 to 8? Multiply by 2. So I get 8, 2 times 2 is 4. Now I can add them, and I get 7 eighths. Right. Last one is I want to try 4 ninths plus 6 18ths. Now, the real reason that we want to make sure that we're not finding multiples here is, or we are finding multiples, is that we don't want to multiply 9 by 18. Right? We don't want to find out that 9 times 18 is 162, and we have to go and do all that reducing and things like that. We really need to look at these denominators here, 9 and 18. Well, I know that 18 is a multiple of 9, so I only need to change this fraction right here. So how am I going to change that? Well, how do I go from 9 to 18? Times 2 times 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, 9 times 2 is 18. This stays the same, or I multiply it by 1 because any number times 1 is itself, plus 6 18ths equals 14 18ths, which I divide by 2 over 2, gives me 7 ninths. Okay. Last thing I want you to do, I'm going to give you 3 problems to do on your own to come in done before class tomorrow. They will be on the board, or remind me and we'll get them checked together. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to do 3 fifths plus 2 sixths. I want to do 4 sevenths plus 2 fifths. And then I want to do 1 eighth plus 2 fourths. Alright? So that is what you need to get done tonight. Good luck, bring that in tomorrow, and we will spend a little bit more time on adding fractions using some common denominators.